Welcome back to Football Daily, and yes, it's a very special episode of Transfer Talk today. As you can see, we're in a studio and Patrick Van Straten is sat on my right. Today we're going to be looking at the Premier League's best teams and who they need to sign in January. We're going to be kicking it straight off with Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. Patrick Van Straten, who do they need?
Well, they certainly need a centre-back. I don't think there can be much debate there. They sent Eliakim Mongala out in the summer. Company still out injured, came back for about 5 minutes. You might have missed that if you blinked or went for a piss. So they do need a centre-back. Now, they've been heavily linked to Dutch centre-back Stefan de Vrij, who is at Lazio at the moment. Apparently £30 million will get you him. Ooh. And he's had a good season so far. 3.3 clearances a game, 2.7 interceptions. That's a high for Lazio. 2 tackles per game. Now, obviously, these are kind of dependent on the system you're playing. But these are actually very similar numbers to Nicolas Otamendi.
Is that a good thing?
Well, who knows? He's 24 years old. He's a big, physically imposing centre-back. Yeah. He might be a very good option, but I think we all know who would be top choice. It's got to be another Dutchman, Virgil van Dijk. Yes. He's been sensational at Southampton. Now, he is a playmaking centre-back, and those are pretty fucking rare. He's making 50 passes a game with a pass completion rate of 85%. Now, those numbers very, very similar to John Stones, but Van Dijk, I think, is actually a better defender than Stones. He edges him on tackles and interceptions. He's also scored 2 in 6 in the Europa League, so he's a threat going forward as well. The only 2 downsides, the haircut, which is appalling, and possible 40 million price tag, because Claude Puel claims that 30 million buyout clause is bullshit. But what other areas do they need to strengthen, mate?
Well, I personally think that they need another midfielder. It's been revealed in the past week at time of filming that Ilkay Gundogan is out for an extended period of time with another knee injury. It could even be 6 to 8 months. That's really sad scenes. They've been deploying Zabaleta in defensive midfield, even attacking midfield at times. So I think you might see a central midfielder come in if he can afford him. One man linked is Koke from Atletico Madrid. Now, for me, it's bullshit. £125 million release clause. I don't see even the Sheikh paying that in a January window. I think it's far more likely that Guardiola will move Zabaleta in there permanently, and that is going to happen.
Internal solution.
Exactly. He doesn't need to go out and spend £125 million. I also think they don't need any more strikers. Don't forget they've got Gabriel Jesus coming in January. You've not really seen the best out of Nolito yet. I don't think you've seen the best out of Leroy Sané either. So I don't think you'll see any attackers come in. Potentially one more central midfielder, but I'm not too sure. But definitely, I think Patrick Van Straten's right. You'll see a centre-back come in at Manchester City.
Next, we head over to Liverpool. And what do the Scousers need in January, mate?
I think you've probably got to be looking at a left-back solution. Long-term, especially. I know that James Milner's done a really, really good job under Jurgen Klopp there. He's so versatile. He's fitting in there. He's scoring his penalties, isn't he? He gets forward. And he is a real bulldog of a player. However, in the long term, I think they'll look to replace him. Potentially, Alex Grimaldo's name has been linked heavily with the club, although he's also been linked to Arsenal, Manchester City, so you wonder whether Liverpool could afford him. However, he is having a really good season. In 8 games so far, he's got 2 goals and 4 assists. That's pretty impressive from a left-back position. He's also doing well in the Champions League with Benfica, isn't he? And in Liga NOS, he's averaging 3.5 tackles per game. Great statistics for a left-back. Whether or not he could come in January and adapt quickly enough to the Premier League remains to be seen. But at such a young age, a La Masia graduate, might be worth taking a punt on, Pato. Any other areas you think they could strengthen?
Well, one last point on left-back. Sead Kolasinac at Schalke, very promising young left-back, is available. His contract runs out next summer, and so he could sign a pre-agreement in January, or possibly Schalke might be amenable to a last-minute move. Jetro Willems of PSV Eindhoven also in exactly the same situation, so they could be options too. Now, the one area that we've heard Liverpool linked with is a wide creative talent. Now, with Sadio Mane off to the Africa Cup of Nations, Felipe Coutinho's obviously spent time out injured this season, they could probably use a creative player in a wide area, and we've heard them linked to Pulisic and Iñaki Williams from Bilbao. Those would be very, very good options in those zones. They need someone with pace who can also create. Now, I don't know if they're going to get either of those guys in January, and so we might actually see an internal solution instead. We know that Jurgen Klopp likes to blood youngsters, so perhaps we'll see Shea Ojo get his chance in the first team come January. But who should Liverpool be looking at? Who would be your shout for a wide player for them this January? Let us know what you think in the comments below.
The third team we're going to be looking at is Chelsea, high-flying Antonio Conte's boys. Who do they need? Not too many players. Their squad's quality, isn't it, Pato?
Yeah, but it looks like they want another centre-back. We heard them linked with Romagnoli in the summer. Kurt Zouma still coming back from injury. John Terry looks to be out of favour. And as we all know, Gary Cahill is dog shit.
Of course, yet again, it's getting boring. They're linked to Kalidou Koulibaly. Spent the whole summer reading British back pages linking Kalidou Koulibaly to a move to Chelsea. It was going to be costing £50 million upwards, so I don't see him moving in January from Napoli. I think left back may be a more pressing area, even central midfield. If Matic or Kante get injured, they might be in a bit of trouble. Same with Marcos Alonso. But we're also hearing, aren't we, Oscar out to China for £60 million. And he's apparently also going to be the best paid player in world football.
Oh my God.
25 million euros a year. That is madness. Looks like Cesc Fabregas is going to be staying at the club after being linked to Roma. But Chelsea fans, we'd love to know what you think. Do you agree with getting rid of Oscar, or should you have got rid of Cesc Fabregas instead? You can vote in the poll right now.
Next up, it's my beloved Arsenal Football Club. Yes, indeed. Now, normally we talk about Arsenal needing a striker, but this year, it kind of seems like they don't need one. Alexis Sanchez has been playing fantastically well there, involved in huge numbers of goals, more than any other player in the Premier League. He's been sensational up front. So what we might need to do instead is replace him on the left wing. Now, the player we've been linked to is Julian Draxler at Wolfsburg. It's always Juventus, PSG and Arsenal linked with this guy. Wenger has liked him for a long time. He was talked about as being a long-term replacement for Robin van Persie because he did play up front in his days at Schalke. Now, we were quoted €80 million for him in the summer, which is a lot for a 23-year-old who's always injured. But it now looks like he's on the out. Wolfsburg sporting director Klaus Allofs has said that Draxler, we will listen to offers for him in January. And so he possibly could go for as low as 35 or 40 million euros. Now, RMC Sport and Built both think that we're interested. And if Sanchez is going to make his permanent home up front, then he wouldn't be such a bad option. This is a guy who completes 3.5 dribbles a game with a 71% dribble success rate. That is incredibly high. Compare that to 55% for Lionel Messi.
Wow.
That's outrageous. This is a guy who makes a couple of key passes a game, has a couple of shots as well. His shooting accuracy is 70% because he's shooting from inside the box. And as we know, Wenger does not like those long-range pot shots. So it seems like he's custom built for a Wenger side. He even comes with his own hospital bed. So I think that this would make sense, but I'm not sure if it's going to happen.
I think there's other areas you need to strengthen first. I think you've got Lucas Perez who can even play out there. He doesn't seem to be getting a game. I think that the left-back area, especially long-term, is a problem. Nacho Monreal's getting on. I also think central midfield. It seems like Cazorla's not going to get a new contract, which seems like madness.
I think he will.
If he doesn't, it's madness. If he does, it's a good move because Cazorla's still a fantastic player and you haven't replaced him in the long term. Monreal, you have been linked to Grimaldo. I keep on hearing that name. Obviously, we talked about him earlier with the Liverpool move and maybe even a right-back backup. Debuchy seems pretty wank, doesn't he? Debuchy's wank. Gabriel at times, isn't he? Behind, obviously, Bellerin, who's a fantastic player, but a lot of pressure on him at a young age.
We've got 3 right backs, but if Bellerin gets injured, we have no right backs.
Yeah, and Callum Chambers out on loan as well, so maybe he might get recalled. Is there a chance of that?
I think he'll stay there all summer. I think he'll stay there all year. And Aitor Karanka is doing a good job defensively, so he'll play centre-back. But look, it's very difficult to thread the needle. You need a guy who's good enough to play for Arsenal, but willing to be a backup to Hector Bellerin.
Very harsh.
Very difficult to find. But who could we go for? Does anyone have a suggestion? For the love of God, write it in our comments below and also send it to Arsenal.
Right, it's time, everybody. What do Manchester United need in January?
New coach.
No need for that at all. I think more likely a centre-half. I'm not actually convinced that we need one, though. Whisper it. I think Phil Jones has been on form. We've got Smalling coming back. I know we're going to lose Eric Bailly for a couple of months of the AFCON. However,
Rojo.
All I'm saying is Rojo's on form. In the long term, of course, we're going to need a centre-half, but I think in January it's not as much of a pressing issue as our right-back scenario. Antonio Valencia, he's picking up a lot of injuries now. He's extremely reliant on pace, and he is 31. And Matteo Darmian is shit. That's it. He's appalling, Matteo Darmian. He won't be sold in January because he can play at right-back and left-back, but in the summer, he will leave the club. He's nowhere near Manchester United's level. There's also a shout for a defensive midfielder. Now, possibly, I'm going to say it, I think Michael Carrick has been our player of the year so far. He is so influential. We haven't lost a game this season that Michael Carrick has played in. Michael Carrick, Paul Pogba and Herrera, Carrick's the glue that holds that together, and we're going to need a replacement. One name I've seen linked in German press 2 or 3 times.
Here it comes.
Is Julian Vigo.
Oh my
now,
God.
I would spend so much money to get this young lad, but Pato doesn't think it's possible. But come on, Manchester United board, bring in Julian Vigo. We've also been linked with Fabinho, who's been playing in defensive midfield for Monaco, and he's a right back, but it's like Groundhog Day. Fabinho gets linked once a fucking season. It's boring. It's never happening, Pato.
Well, the other link has been João Cancelo from Valencia. He's a very good young right back. He's 5'11". He's pretty quick. He's been in a pretty bad Valencia team this season, but has still emerged with some credit. Now, sports say that Barcelona are interested in signing him for around 30 million euros at the end of the season. So that's very stiff competition there. But as we know, Man United do have the bunts to make pretty much whatever they want to happen, except Julian Vigo. So it'll be interesting to see if they make any moves in January.
Just before we head to our last Premier League team, make sure you head over to Euro Football Daily, who have covered all of the biggest European teams, including the likes of Barcelona and Bayern Munich. You know the score by now. Hit the link on screen right now to go and watch that. But our last Premier League team, Tottenham Hotspur. Do they even need anyone, Pat? They're doing okay. Good squad.
They've got a very tight squad, and Pochettino is really good at integrating those youngsters.
Yeah.
We've seen Harry Winks play this season. I think he's been pretty impressive. Josh Onoma as well.
Yeah.
But what I worry about is their creativity if Christian Eriksen gets injured. People like to talk up the creative talents of Kane and Ali, but none of them is a genuine creative midfielder except for Christian Eriksen.
Ooh.
Now, he is a fantastic player, and he's also really important to their counter-pressing game, so I think they might want to replace him. Now, somebody who was mentioned to me as a possible replacement for him is Villarreal's Manu Trigueros.
Oh, what's his name? It sounds like he should be playing centre for Fiji, number 10.
What a niche shout this is. Okay, he's got 4 goals in 17 games from attacking midfield for Villarreal, gets fouled quite a lot, completes 4 long balls as well, so that perhaps shows that he's playing a bit more versatile role than Eriksen does.
Yeah.
He also creates about 1.3 chances per game, which is kind of half of what Eriksen does. But as I said, Eriksen bears that entire creative burden for Tottenham.
Yeah.
So it's possible that if you get that responsibility, you will improve. Now, Spurs were linked with Isco in the summer. They've been linked with Yunus Mali from Mainz in the past. Hakim Ziyech might have been an interesting shout for them as well before he went to Ajax. But if there's one problem in the squad, it is that one there. And I think that they might miss a trick if they don't pick up a cheap option who can just be a backup to Eriksen in January.
I completely agree. A few of you at home might be thinking they've got Moussa Sissoko, though. They've got Moussa Dembele in there. They've got Dele Alli. Why do they need another midfielder? Well, because none of those guys do the role that Eriksen does. I completely agree as well that Pochettino is more likely to promote from within. Linked to the likes of Ross Barkley by the Daily Mail, there's no chance. Let me tell you now, there is no chance. Everton would demand a ridiculous fee for a player who hasn't played consistently enough to warrant a big move over the last 2 years. I do think Pochettino would perhaps get the best out of him, but Ross Barkley wouldn't be starting at Tottenham, so why on earth would he move there for the sake of his career? And Tottenham Hotspur, Daniel Levy's not going to spend £40 million on him. The likes of Josh Onoma, much more likely to get promoted into that position. Harry Winks as well coming through. Fingers crossed Tottenham keep it solid. So I actually want to see them do well this season, Patrick, unlike you Arsenal supporting scumbag.
Within reason. 5th place.
As I said before, make sure you head over to Euro Football Daily before you click off this video. Pato, what other teams have you covered over there, mate?
Dortmund, Roma, Napoli, PSG, and as Joe said, Bayern and Barcelona. The Madrid team's afraid they don't get a look in thanks to that transfer ban. Naughty, naughty.
And as ever, guys, please do like and subscribe.
See you in the new year.
Woo.